Hey guys, I know, it's been a while. But the first Kung Fu Panda movie came out 15 years ago this year, so of course we're going to revisit the trio of movies that have come out so far. And with the announcement of a fourth movie, I think this will be a fun look back on DreamWorks' best franchise. Better than Shrek, you ask? Well, I don't really like Shrek 3 or Shrek 4, and the first Puss in Boots movie is kinda mid. So to me, this is DreamWorks' best franchise so far. And the first movie led to numerous TV shows and a couple video games. We're not going to talk about everything, but I may mention stuff from those things. This video is going to be pretty long as is, so let's keep this intro short and kick things off with the movie that started it all off. Let's start with the plot summary, and as usual, I'm not going to go entirely scene by scene. The movie starts off with some 2D animation with Po dreaming about being a Kung Fu master, and we get a little intro to the Furious 5. We find out that Po works at a noodle shop with his adoptive goose father, Mr. Ping. We then get introduced to Master Shifu and Master Oogway. Oogway reveals that he had a vision of Tai Lung returning. They talk about choosing the Dragon Warrior. So then we have the actual tournament for Oogway to pick the Dragon Warrior, and Po doesn't make it in time to watch. We see Po's various attempts to watch, and then finally he uses some fireworks to get over the wall. Master Oogway is about to pick the Dragon Warrior, and Po comes crashing in, and Oogway points at Po, naming him the new Dragon Warrior. After this, we see Tai Lung in prison, and this feather falls in front of him. This will become important later. Not much to note after this. Here's Shifu putting Po into the Wuxi Fingerhold, and basically from here Shifu tries to break down Po and make him quit through intense training. The Furious 5 believe Oogway picking him is a fluke, since Po doesn't know Kung Fu, and Tigress is hostile towards him.
You're a disgrace to Kung Fu, and if you have any respect for who we are, you will be gone by morning.
Po gets some encouragement from Oogway, who also knows he eats when he's upset.
There's a saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present.
Then we see Tai Lung use the feather from earlier to escape from prison. And this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. Po begins training with the Furious 5 and it doesn't go very well for him, but he refuses to quit even when he has to fight against Shifu. And then we get the backstory on Tai Lung. Shifu found Tai Lung and raised him. When he showed talent in Kung Fu, he began training Tai Lung to be the Dragon Warrior, but Oogway saw darkness in him and denied him. Tai Lung tried to take the Dragon Scroll by force and Shifu had to stop him, but couldn't because Tai Lung was like a son to him. So Oogway stopped him. Shifu informs Oogway that Tai Lung has escaped. Oogway assures Shifu that picking Po as a Dragon Warrior wasn't an accident, and tells Shifu he needs to believe in Po. Then Oogway passes on to the Spirit Realm.
My time has come. You must continue your journey without me.
During dinner, Shifu tells the students Tai Lung has escaped. We get a pretty good scene of Shifu and Po. I wish I could show it, but copyright is a thing. I'll show a short snippet though.
I stayed because I thought if anyone could change me, could make me not me, it was you.
When Po is eating, Shifu realizes that Po can be motivated by food after seeing him do a perfect split to get some cookies. He begins using food to train Po. We get a pretty cool training montage. There's also this great scene where Shifu and Po battle over a dumpling. Meanwhile, the Furious 5 attempt to stop Tai Lung and we get a fight scene on this bridge. And though it seems like the 5 win, Tai Lung ends up single-handedly beating all of them.
Shifu taught you well.
Finally, Shifu gives Po the Dragon Scroll, and it's blank. Shifu says he'll fight Tai Lung and instructs Po and the 5 to evacuate the village. Po has a conversation with his father and Mr. Ping reveals that there is no secret ingredient to his secret ingredient soup. He tells Po this.
The secret ingredient of my secret ingredient soup. The secret ingredient is nothing. To make something special, you just have to believe it's special.
This helps Po understand the Dragon Scroll. Tai Lung arrives at the Jade Palace and confronts Shifu, and this fight scene goes hard. Again, I wish I could show extended clips, but that will definitely get the video blocked.
Not your fault? Who filled my head with dreams? Who drove me to train until my bones cracked? Who denied me my destiny?
But that should encourage you to watch the movie for yourself. As Tai Lung is about to kill Shifu, Po shows up and stops him.
Who are you?
Buddy, I am the Dragon Warrior.
Then we see Po and Tai Lung fight for the scroll, and we get to see some of the skills that Po has learned in callbacks to previous scenes. We see his skills with chopsticks, we see him use a fireworks cart, and we see him envision the dragon scroll as food to climb. Tai Lung gets a hold of the scroll but finds out it's nothing. Po tells him there's no secret ingredient, it's just you. Tai Lung tries a nerve attack on Po, but it doesn't work. Eventually, Po beats him and puts him into the Wuxi Fingerhold and sends Tai Lung to the spirit realm. The village is saved and we get one last scene with Shifu and Po. The credits roll and we get a version of Kung Fu Fighting by Jack Black and CeeLo Green.
Everybody is Kung Fu Fighting!
Let's talk about the stuff I like. Obviously this is a pretty A-list cast, and I'm not going to name everyone, but everyone plays a role well. In particular, I'm a big fan of Randall Kim as Master Oogway. I love the voice he chose for the character, and he has really good comedic timing and delivery. He's actually one of the funniest characters across the entire franchise.
But who? Who is worthy to be trusted with the secret to limitless power to become the Dragon Warrior? I don't know.
And I obviously have to give praise to Dustin Hoffman for his performance as Shifu, but Jack Black and Ian McShane deserve praise for their performances as Po and Tai Lung respectively. I liked Tai Lung's backstory, the personal tie to Shifu, and I actually think the movie could have been better if we saw him more. I do like how we see him escape the prison and not only fight the Furious Five on the bridge, but win that fight on his own. I think these are good moments of show don't tell. We actually get to see how strong Tai Lung is. But I do wish we got to see a little more of him because Tai Lung is probably my favorite DreamWorks villain. Death from the Last Wish to me is more of an antagonist than a villain, but he's up there too. But Tai Lung has the most reasonable motivations out of the three villains. Shifu trained him to be the Dragon Warrior and didn't stand up for him when Oogway said otherwise. So it makes sense why he feels jaded and wants the scroll. With Po, I do wish we got to see a little more of him actually mastering his powers. The whole scene with the Dragon Scroll being blank is actually fine with me. We get the training scenes that demonstrate him learning how to fight, but in terms of actually mastering the powers of the Dragon Warrior, we don't really get to see it, but ultimately that is the point of the scroll being blank. There is no secret. The power comes from belief in yourself. I'm gonna dive a little deeper into this and give some backstory. They created a micro-series called Legend of the Legendary Warrior in tandem with the movie, and in the third part they indirectly explain the Dragon Scroll. Basically, Oogway went on a journey of reflection and came to a pool. As he looked into his reflection and meditated, he could hear a butterfly's wing beat and see light in the darkest cave. Shifu says this when giving Po the Dragon Scroll.
He could hear a butterfly's wing beat. But legend says you will be able to hear a butterfly's wing beat.
He could see light in the darkest cave.
And see light in the deepest cave.
As he meditated, he felt the universe in motion around him.
You will feel the universe in motion around you.
So the power and basis of Kung Fu comes from excellence and belief in yourself. So that's why the Dragon Scroll was reflective, and why Po finally understood that there was no secret ingredient. I think of the three movies, this one has the best pacing. This is back when movies were okay with being 90 minutes and didn't have a bunch of filler to reach a 2-hour runtime. And obviously the animation is top notch. You can tell from the opening scene that the animation is going to be good, and it is. But truthfully, this can be applied to all three movies. They all look great. But I also give them credit for giving each of the Furious Five and Po their own styles of fighting. And these were based on actual Kung Fu fighting styles. Monkey uses Monkey Kung Fu, Tigress uses Tiger Kung Fu, and so on. This is a really cool detail that some may not pick up on. The score was done by Hans Zimmer and John Powell, and all three movies have amazing scores, so there isn't much to say there. The guys are legends. In terms of things I don't like, there really isn't much. I think this is a rock solid movie. It's a kids movie, so I'll forgive some tonal inconsistencies. I don't love the acupuncture bit right after we get Tai Lung's backstory, but it kind of feels like I'm nitpicking a kids movie at that point. The fight scenes are well done, and overall it's pretty easy to see why this movie spawned a franchise. So let's go ahead and give Kung Fu Panda an 8.5 out of 10.
Monkey.
Everybody was Kung Fu fighting.
Now we have the second movie. Let's run through the plot real quick. Like the last movie, this movie opens with some 2D animation and basically peacocks ruled over Gongmin City and invented fireworks. But Lord Shen realized it could be used as weapons. A soothsayer predicted that if Lord Shen continued down this path, he would be defeated by a warrior of black and white. Lord Shen then committed genocide on pandas. He was banished from the city but swore revenge. We transitioned to 3D animation and were officially introduced to Lord Shen. Po has been the Dragon Warrior for some time now, but Shifu informs him that he hasn't yet achieved inner peace. This is the next phase of his training. Some wolf bandits are raiding a village, so Po and the Furious Five set off to stop them. We get a pretty cool fight scene. I'll show this in more depth later. During the fight, Po notices a symbol on the wolf leader's armor that triggers a flashback of his mother. The wolves end up escaping and Po goes to confront Mr. Ping. He asks Mr. Ping where he came from, and Mr. Ping reveals that he found Po in a radish crate. He waited for someone to come looking for him, but no one ever did. So Mr. Ping raised him as his son. Lord Shen arrives at Gongmin City to take over. He battles Master Croc and Master Ox, and it's later revealed he killed Master Thundering Rhino. Po has a brief conversation with Mr. Ping. We get a montage of the five and Po traveling to Gongmin City, and Po has a dream of his parents replacing him with a radish. It makes a lot more sense when you're watching the movie. He has a brief conversation with Tigress and they arrive at Gongmin City. Meanwhile, the soothsayer informs Lord Shen that her vision hasn't changed, and he will still be defeated by a warrior of black and white. A wolf comes and informs Lord Shen that he saw a panda, in reference to Po. We get a scene of Po and the Furious Five making their way through the city. They're told that Master Croc and Master Ox are being held in the city prison, and there's a Pac-Man reference. They free the Masters, but the Masters tell them if they fight against Shen, Shen will destroy the city. They have a brief tussle over Po trying to get them to help, and then they tell him Kung Fu is dead. They end up chasing after a wolf, so we get that chase scene. Po and the Furious Five end up getting captured. They have an interaction with Lord Shen and Po's plan sets into motion. The real Mantis frees them, and eventually Po realizes Shen was there during the genocide. Shen escapes and attacks the palace, and the group barely escapes. Tigress confronts Po and tells him that he's too distracted to come with to fight Lord Shen. Po reveals that Lord Shen was there the last time he saw his parents. Tigress sympathizes with him, but maintains that he can't come. Po ends up confronting Shen, ruining the ambush, and the Furious Five get captured. Shen tells Po his parents hated him and abandoned him, then shoots him with a cannon. The soothsayer rescues him and nurses him back to health, and then we get a flashback and find out the truth about Po's parents. When Lord Shen attacked the village, Po's father stayed and fought, and Po's mother put him in the radish crate and went to go hold them off. Po finally achieves inner peace.
I am Po, and I'm gonna need a hat.
Lord Shen travels down the river with his army with the Furious Five captive. Po frees the five and is eventually joined by the other masters, including Master Shifu. They create a blockade and Lord Shen fires at it, killing some of his own soldiers. Lord Shen fires cannonballs at Po, but by achieving inner peace, Po is able to deflect them. He destroys Shen's ship and offers him mercy, but Shen attacks him and ends up getting crushed, and the city is saved. Po returns home and tells Mr. Ping he knows who he is, and affirms him as his dad.
I know who I am.
You do?
I'm your son.
Finally, in a distant village, it's revealed Po's biological father is still alive, living among other pandas. And the movie ends. Let's talk about the things I like. This movie has a slower pace than the first movie, but it goes much deeper into Po's backstory and him as a character. And I actually think that Po's backstory is well done. We're spoon-fed bits and pieces until finally we get the whole picture, and it hits all the emotional beats that you expect it to. I also really like the sound design in this movie. The score was once again done by Hans Zimmer and John Powell. In the first fight scene, the music syncs up with the fight choreography pretty perfectly. I'll show some snippets so you can see and hear it for yourself.
Incoming! Thanks, Mantis.
The landscape and architecture of the movie, and they feature certain Szechuan food too. It's clear that they showed genuine interest in the culture and took care to incorporate these elements. I think Lord Shen is a fun, ruthless villain. I do have some complaints about him, but I'll get to that later, but I thought Gary Oldman gave a standout performance. But truthfully, the whole cast was great. Michelle Yeoh as the soothsayer was a nice addition as well. So what do I dislike about this movie? I do find the movie to be a little too tonally inconsistent, and I gave it a pass for the first movie, but it's harder to ignore in this movie, because in general this is a much darker movie than the first movie, but in a lot of ways it's goofier than the first one. Like, it's a kids movie, so I expected to lean into the comedy more, but considering this movie starts off with the story of how Lord Shen committed genocide on the pandas, it's a little jarring to open the movie with Po stuffing his mouth with dumplings right after that. A scene that eases us into the comedy might have worked better in my opinion. Like maybe you start off with a fight scene and have the dumpling scene after. I will say when the humor works, it does work.
But please stand aside, sir.
That's a lady.
Oh, sorry. The beard threw me. It's kind of misleading. False advertising.
Enough!
There's a scene when him and Tigress are talking on a boat going to Gongmin City. I do like this scene.
I just found out that my dad isn't really my dad.
Your dad, the goose. That must have been quite a shock.
Lord Shen's motivations are also a little wacky. I get that he's just an evil little bird, but the fact is that he was heir to the throne and all he had to do was be normal. Instead, he decided to weaponize gunpowder and commit genocide. He lets plenty of his own soldiers die too. Of the three villains, he's probably the most evil. But honestly, this is a pretty good sequel. I think the positives outweigh the negatives, and I do still get enjoyment out of revisiting it. So let's give Kung Fu Panda 2 a 7 out of 10. Now we have the third and final movie for this review. Let's talk about the plot. The movie opens with arguably the best scene in the entire movie, Master Oogway fighting Kai in the spirit realm. Kai obviously being the villain for this movie. Kai takes Oogway's chi and returns to the mortal realm. Shifu announces he's retiring and names Po as his successor. Po attempts to train the Furious Five don't go very well, and Shifu tells him to be himself and not try to replicate him. He also explains that mastery of chi comes from mastery of self. Po goes home and eventually meets his biological father Li Shan, who says that he got a sign from the universe that Po was still alive. More on this later. Po fools around with Li in the Jade Palace and he introduces them to Shifu and the Furious Five. The Valley of Peace is being attacked by Kai's Jade Zombies, which are made up of masters whose chi he's stolen. After this, we get the backstory on Kai. Kai was Oogway's best friend, and when Oogway got hurt, Kai took him to a village of pandas who used chi to heal him. They taught him how to give chi, but Kai realized that he could take chi and use the power for himself. Oogway battled him and banished him to the spirit realm. Po's dad tells Po that he could teach him how to use chi by going home and learning how to be a panda. Lee takes him to the village where he meets his family and Lee begins teaching him how to be a panda. Meanwhile, Mantis and Crane are sent to go warn the other masters and end up both getting their chi stolen by Kai. We do eventually get a scene where Lee talks about Po's mom and losing her in Po. Kai attacks the Jade Palace with Crane and Mantis. The three remaining members of the five plus Shifu fight them, but they get defeated and all but Tigress have their chi stolen. Tigress arrives at the village to warn Po about Kai. Po insists Lee tells him how to master chi, and Lee admits that he doesn't know how to use chi. Po disowns him and begins training to defeat Kai.
I lost you once. I am not going to lose you again. I can't.
You just did.
Po and Tigress argue that Po can't defeat Kai alone, so Lee and the rest of the pandas offer to learn Kung Fu to help him fight. Po finally realizes he can't teach them to be him, but he can use what they're already good at to teach them Kung Fu. Kai and his zombies attack the village and the pandas begin fighting them. Po eventually gets close enough to use the Wuxi finger hold on Kai, but it doesn't work because Kai isn't mortal. Po eventually ends up grabbing Kai and using the Wuxi finger hold on himself to send them both to the spirit realm. Kai fights Po in the spirit realm and begins taking his chi, but Lee finally understands that chi comes from finding yourself, and he leads the other in transferring their chi to Po. Po finally understands who he is and uses his chi to defeat Kai, and all of the masters have their chi restored. Po speaks with Oogway, and Oogway reveals that he was the one that sent Lee to find Po. He also reveals that when they met, he saw both the future and past of Kung Fu, someone that can master both Kung Fu and Chi, or the world. At the restored Jade Palace, Po begins teaching everyone Kung Fu and Chi, and the movie ends and we get another rendition of Kung Fu fighting. So what do I like? The fight scenes in this movie are pretty incredible, and like the last two movies, the animation is absolutely top notch. I think both fights in the spirit realm are stunning. The score is once again top notch as well. Hans Zimmer went hard once again, and the song for Kai is a banger, and it fits into his scenes perfectly. I can't play too much, but here's a snippet. I did like seeing Po's family, and while I think some of the scenes of him learning to be a panda are a little dragged out, I do think families will enjoy it, and that is ultimately the target audience of the movie. I also really like the way the movie is edited. There's a few really cool montages like when Po and Lee are traveling to the panda village, and when Po is training the village. And I sound like a broken record at this point, but obviously the voice acting was great. Jack Black clearly loves playing this character, but everyone is fantastic. Bryan Cranston in particular did a great job as Lee. And of course I love Kai as a villain. I find Kai's backstory to be pretty compelling, and I think they gave him a good amount of screen time. I think if they had more of him, the pacing would have suffered. And I'll get into the pacing of the movie in a bit, but I think having him be a spirit warrior brought a fresh element to the franchise. And obviously J.K. Simmons killed it as Kai. So what didn't work for me? The comedy for me didn't work quite as well as the other two movies. I know it's a kids movie, but I don't love how they downplayed Kai. It's pretty odd to me that Oogway never made any mention of his former best friend, especially knowing that he could steal Chi. He's undeniably the most powerful of the three villains, yet he's taken the least seriously until people realize how powerful he is. And not knowing who he is a recurring joke in the movie.
Kai has returned!
Of either the two previous movies. In truth, all the movies are kind of structured the same, which any means. It's pretty good, and I put it about on par with the second movie. I think Kai as a Shen is an absolute menace in comparison with how he's portrayed. Overall, this is still a really good movie, and one I wouldn't mind revisiting. So let's give Kung Fu Panda 3 a 7 out of 10. And that about wraps up this video. Leave a comment down below giving your thoughts on what video you might want to see next. This has been the Mellow Time Movie Hour. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Go ahead, hit that like button.